Hello, I'm Michelle Shepard with Westcoast Nutrition, and this week I wanted to touch on 5 reasons you might be so driven to overeat when you sit down for dinner. Last time we talked about how to manage overeating and natural healthy portion control in the moment, but I think this is a really important topic because it might make it all a heck of a lot easier if you're not so driven in the first place. So let's start out with my top 2, and then we'll move on to some of the other more kind of intriguing ones that might also be plaguing you. Number 1, you're not eating enough during the day. And I see this in a lot of my clients who are trying to lose weight or lose fat or get fitter because they're trying to be so tight and so low calorie during the day. But what ends up happening is your hunger hormones, because they're not being responded to, and we have this huge deficit in your most active period, ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. And so by the end of the day, you've got these hunger hormones raging and you're doing all the strategies and you sit down to dinner and you just scarf it all down until you're so overstuffed. It doesn't feel good physically. Often we eat back everything we kind of withheld during the day, and it's not a great cycle. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is actually try and either more evenly spread your calories over the days. So be proactive about eating more as opposed to kind of falling into overeating later. And also considering even front loading a little bit. So some clients do really well with actually a larger, heartier breakfast or lunch. So having more of that protein, calories, energy, and food earlier on in the day. So we're actually lowering the starting point for your hunger hormones. That way, when you sit down for dinner or for snacks afterwards, you don't have that biology driving you to just pound back whatever is in front of you. Number 2 is an extension of that. It is you're not eating enough protein. Protein is one of the primary regulators of our fullness hormone. And so when we're not getting enough protein early in the day, research has shown we need at least 20 plus grams, probably more if you're aiming for fat loss or you're larger. At breakfast particularly, your hunger hormones are going to be elevated for the rest of the day, no matter how good you do at lunch and dinner. And I do want to say there's no magic time. So breakfast here is just the first meal of the day, not necessarily like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., but really make sure you're getting 20 plus grams of good quality protein at that meal, whether it's eggs, whether it's a tofu scramble, whether you're doing a smoothie or a shake with a protein powder or Greek yogurt in it. But be really diligent about working that in, and you'll notice the rest of the day, that evening particularly, hunger is way down, and managing the rate of eating and how much gets so much easier. The third one is your stress or your sleep deficit is running the show. And there's 2 reasons for this. So both of these, either high emotional stress, so whether that's work or life or pandemic, is going to drive up both your physical chemical hunger hormones as well as your brain's need to feel good. And so you've got this real biological drive, and then you've got this emotional drive to eat more. And eating does light up our happy hormones. A sleep deficit does the same thing. So we really want to be sure that although life is stressful, you are still carving out time for breaks during the day, especially if you're working at home. I find we overlook them, or we just kind of work through. You're exercising, you're going to bed on time during the week, which I know I struggle with. I'm a night owl. So really, before you kind of crank back all of your food or get really restrictive if you're struggling with overeating, try and address those 2 first. Try and do something every day, even if it's just a minute or 2 that lowers your stress. Try and find a more steady sleep schedule. I know that can be really hard with young kids, but for the rest of us, working on it and finding a better path. And you'll notice that hunger comes down quite a bit the more consistent you are. Number 4 is you've hopped on and off restrictive diets either quite a bit recently or over your lifetime. And I want to be clear, no shame or guilt here. We've all been there. It's totally normal in our culture to do restrictive diets as a way to lose weight or heal your gut or cleanse, or something like that. But what this does is set up kind of a scarcity as far as your brain and food. And so when really good foods are available, you're likely to have very little control over how much you eat. And the temptation is, after a period of overeating, to then crank it all back and white knuckle your way through something really strict. And the answer to this, if you struggle with overeating and you have this history, is actually feeding yourself more regularly. It's working with someone to kind of start to build in a way to add trigger foods so that you can enjoy them and have control. It is actually intentionally planning for treats as opposed to falling face first into them. So being more accepting and allowing for a period should reduce that sense that your brain needs to get it all in now, because it doesn't know when you're going to take it away again. So again, no shame or guilt on that one. It's really common thread amongst my clients and amongst our Conquer Your Cravings participants. But we do want to make sure we're starting to deal with it so that you don't have to really fight this urge for the next 5, 10, 20 years, or go on and off anymore really restrictive, really uncomfortable, really unenjoyable diets. And the very last one, so number 5, is potentially your biology or genetics. So this one is less common, but I have had a handful of clients struggle with this. So when I talk about biology, I'm usually talking about something like insulin resistance, where we are putting food in your body, but your healthy cells aren't necessarily getting the fuel into them. And so you're continuing to get signaling from your hunger hormones. And that's something you'd want to work with a dietitian on to reverse or put into remission so that that will come down naturally and fuel's going where it's supposed to go. The other thing we can sometimes see is genetics. So what we have is clients who either have really elevated hunger hormones or really low sensitivity to fullness hormones, which is more common. And so your body might not actually tell you. There are ways I work on that with clients around retuning and environmental cues and being, strategies to manage that if that's you. But it's really important you work with someone so you find that kind of nice, holistic, and lifelong strategies to maintain that. Other people can also have an enhanced response in the reward centers to certain foods. And we see this in other areas as well. So their brain really lights up all the bells and whistles. It's like a circus in there with really high fat or really high carb foods. And what that does is drive the urge to eat. So again, that's something most of the strategies we talk about in like Conquer Your Cravings or some of the emails we've done around, comfort eating will really help, but those clients might need additional support. So if that's you, don't feel ashamed about it. You've probably noticed that in other areas too. You often, I find those clients struggle with like really getting sucked into a game, or, really just finding everything hard to let go if it's really pleasurable. So get some help, work on it, make it easier, but know that there might be more than one reason you're actually struggling to stop overeating. I hope this was really helpful, and I would love to hear your questions. Please reply and email back, or if you are watching on YouTube, just put in the comments below. I hope you have a happy and healthy week, and I'll chat with you next week.